Ferrari lead the way in Singapore practice, are Red Bull having problems, and the Mercedes-Red Bull saga continues. Let's get into the latest in the F1 world from Friday in Singapore. Ferrari charged ahead in both practice sessions in Singapore, as Charles Leclerc led the way in FP1 with Carlos Sainz in P2 and a reversal of this order in FP2. There were questions over whether their pace in the sun-filled first practice session would carry over to the more representative conditions of FP2, but as the sun went down and the lights came on, their pace seemingly remained. Ferrari weren't expecting to be competitive at the high downforce Marina Bay circuit after their success in the low downforce setups needed for Monza, and Charles Leclerc said that they shouldn't get carried away as he feels perhaps other teams aren't showing their true pace yet. Looking to the rest of the field, as they had expected but very few believed, Red Bull had some difficulties with rear grip and overall balance of the car today and finished FP2 and P7 and 8 with a performance that was way worse than they expected according to Max Verstappen. Perez is hopeful that they can figure out what's going on overnight, as qualifying in Singapore is very important in his own words. Mercedes, McLaren and Aston Martin were all in the top 5 at some point today, so the best of the rest spot may be hotly contested into qualifying. Who do you think will get pole tomorrow? Toto Wolff has explained what he meant by his Wikipedia comment about Max Verstappen. After Max claimed his record 10th win in a row in Monza, Toto Wolff said that the record is for Wikipedia and nobody reads that anyway, with Lewis Hamilton also saying he was no more impressed with Max's record than any other drivers. Max Verstappen was asked to respond to these comments in Singapore and expressed that it was likely that the comments from the Mercedes boss were fueled by frustration with his own team's poor performance at Monza. Toto Wolff also explained his comments further and said maybe it wasn't the most intelligent thing he could have said, but that it came from a mindset instilled in him by Niki Lauda that trophies and numbers never mattered. The Mercedes boss went on to say that Red Bull will take another big trophy, and that is something that is the most valuable, as the best person in the best car wins the World Championship. What do you make of Toto's response? Helmut Marko has been warned by the FIA over his offensive comments about Sergio Perez. The Red Bull Motorsport advisor made some offensive comments about Sergio Perez in a TV appearance earlier this month, blaming his inconsistency this season on his ethnicity. Today, the FIA has issued Marko with a written warning that reminded him of his responsibilities as a public figure in motorsport in line with the FIA Code of Ethics. Further condemnations of Marko's comments have come in across the Singapore Grand Prix weekend so far, with Red Bull's team principal Christian Horner saying that the comments weren't right but were regretted by Marko, and he went on to explain that the team and the company hadn't made a statement as Marko is not an employee of Red Bull Racing but instead is part of the wider Red Bull group. Other teams expressed their feelings over Marko's remarks, with Toto Wolff saying it's so embarrassing for Formula 1 and Lewis Hamilton saying it's not something you just apologise for and it's all okay. Checo himself has accepted Helmut Marko's apology, saying he didn't get offended at all personally. Marko will now reportedly only comment on sporting matters related to Red Bull following this incident. Many teams have brought significant upgrades to Singapore, and it looks like they may be working. McLaren are among the teams who have brought a significant upgrade list to Singapore as they continue their development of their MCL60 car. The team introduced a fundamental upgrade in Austria earlier this year, and since then have contended for podiums, pole positions, and even race wins. Kind of. Only Lando Norris is running the upgrades this weekend, with Oscar Piastri expected to receive them next week in Japan, but they seem to be having some effect, as Lando finished P4 in practice 1 and P6 in practice 2, with Oscar comparatively down in P19 and 15. Speaking after practice, Lando said the updates were doing what they're meant to, and that McLaren are in the fight for best of the rest with Mercedes, Aston Martin and Red Bull. AlphaTauri have also introduced a substantial set of upgrades to their car this weekend, as they begin their move to take more inspiration from Red Bull's design philosophy. The upgrades are mainly on the aerodynamic side of things, which Yuki Tsunoda hopes will change their standings. The upgrades, according to Yuki, were produced in line with feedback from Liam Lawson and Daniel Ricciardo that they were lacking support from the rear, and the team hope that they will make a big change to their performance in Singapore. Yuki ended first practice in P9 and the second session in P16, with Liam in P16 and P12, perhaps indicating there's some work to do to extract the best from the upgrades. You're all caught up with the latest in the F1 world. What do you make of these stories? Let us know in the comments, like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to Apex for the latest in the F1 world.